It is 6:30 in the morning, sunrise in the small Sahel village of Abdoulaye. The village is nestled among ancient sand dunes on the south edge of the Sahara, 120 kilometers north of Zander on the road to Agadez, and 39 kilometers on a sand track from the paved road. There are a few year-round inhabitants in the village, but the population has increased 100-fold, as thousands of Wodaabe from near and far have gathered for the Gerewol celebration. The early morning is cold, and people are wrapped up against the chill. A young man prepares his morning tea with a tiny pot and a handful of tea, sugar, and some mint. He already has red makeup on his face. Young women huddle under blankets for warmth, and a young Wodaabe shares his breakfast with his pet camel.
C'est avec ça qu'on mange la nourriture.
Okay. Donc c'est le tout il donne au chameau aussi. Je peux essayer d'ouvrir ça et puis me montrer le produit qui est à l'intérieur.
Ça, il y a ce gagné à Bundeki. Pourquoi?
He shows us his bottle of antimony, applied around his eyes to prevent a variety of eye infections.
C'est comme si on met de l'antimoire. Ah ouais. Et ça, c'est une sorte d'antimoire.
Je peux remettre pour que je puisse.
Ouais, c'est ça, j'ai un qualité. Et donc,
voilà.
The Wodaabe live across southern Niger and northern Nigeria in West Africa. They are one of many Fulani peoples who live in the Sahel area of West Africa, between Dakar in the west and Lake Chad in the east. Among the diverse Fulani peoples are the Gowabe and Jalgobe in Burkina Faso, who appear in my film Fulani, Art and Life of a Nomadic People, and the Wodaabe, who appear here. The Wodaabe often compare themselves to wild birds. They move about the wilderness almost as they please. They are beautiful like birds, and like birds the men put on a beautiful show to impress the young women. They are the birds of the wilderness, or Sole Lade.
Okay.
The name Wodaabe means people of the taboo, because the Wodaabe follow a very complex system of avoidances, especially concerning women who are menstruating. It is also forbidden for anyone to step on or across the leather calf rope that marks the center line of the home. They are a very ancient African people who may have lived in West Africa for over 8,000 years. There are images on the walls of rock shelters in the central Sahara that represent people who look very much like the modern Fulani, and whose lives as herders may have been very similar at a time when all of the Sahara was a lush green pasture, covered with herds of antelope, giraffes, elephants, and cattle. There is absolutely no evidence that the Fulani immigrated into Africa from somewhere else, in spite of futile speculation to the contrary by Western scholars over the past several decades. The bed shelter is called sudu. It is made up of posts and slim beams on which mats are laid, covered with blankets. Thinner poles are placed upright to support sheets or a mosquito net, to protect sleepers from cold drafts, mosquitoes, or to provide shade during the day. During the dry season, the family sleeps under the stars, in a family space defined by a circle of brush and thorns. The back of the space faces east, and is where the women's shelters are set up. In front of the women's beds is the common cooking fire. The west side of the circle is for the cattle, and there is a separate fire there. This is a smudge fire to keep away insects. Young boys sleep just outside the corral to watch the herd. The family space is divided by the calf rope, pegged from north to south, to which the calves are tied during the day to keep them away from the herds so they cannot nurse. If a calf nurses before the cow is milked, there will be no milk for the family, so the calves are kept tethered until all the cows have been milked, and they are then released to feed. The east side of the calf rope is the woman's domain, and the west side is the men's domain. All men sleep in the west side, except the head of the family, who shares his wife's sudi, or beds. The home is called after the father. The home of Omar is called Wuru Omar, or Omar's home. The home of Adama is Wuru Adama, or Adama's home. The beds are named after the women who own them. So Sudu Raya is Raya's bed, but it also refers to all of her children, so Sudu Raya may mean Raya's family. This is the woman's table, called Saga. On it she arranges her ceremonial gourd bowls and her kakul, the secret magical women's objects that must never be touched by a man. These are full of magical amulets and other materials, carefully wrapped up and moved with the gourd bowls. The table is the property of the woman of the house, and its size mirrors the size of her family and her fertility. It is made up of ceremonial gourd bowls, ladles, and other milking equipment, and is carefully wrapped up and loaded onto the great carrying ox when the family moves. As the woman becomes older, she gives each of her daughters some objects from the table, until finally almost nothing is left. It is the symbol of the home and the family shrine. The Wodaabe herd cattle, sheep, goats, camels, and a few horses in the broad area called the Sahel, between the Sahara Desert and the forests of West Africa. This area receives sufficient water during the rainy season from July to September to create vast green pastures of grass for their cattle, but it is north of the brushy, forested areas of the Guinea coast that are full of tsetse flies, which carry trypanosomiasis or sleeping sickness. When cattle or other domesticated animals are bitten by tsetse flies, they soon sicken and die. Herders are careful to keep their animals north of the deadly zone so that they stay healthy, and when they are sent to market, they ship them quickly by truck or train to southern cities such as Kano, Lagos, Cotonou, and Accra. The Wodaabe are constantly on the move, in very regular, predictable, and ancient patterns of movement from north to south and back with the rains. They usually break camp and move every 3 days, although there are certain days of the lunar cycle that are considered unlucky when they do not travel. They do not move randomly or wander aimlessly. They practice transhumance, or movement with the seasons along well-established paths. During the dry season, they move south to areas their ancestors exploited, where soil is full of clay, and so grass stays green much longer than in the north. In the rainy season, they move north to sandy areas at the edge of the desert, where heavy spring rains cause great meadows of fresh grass to sprout. They always know exactly where they have been and where they are going, and based on decades of experience, they understand what they will find when they arrive. The women of each family walk to the well in Abdounazan to get water. The well is deep. Abdoulaye says it's 100 meters deep, but from the length of the ropes, I guess it is closer to 100 feet, or 30 meters. The well is lined with concrete, so it is safe from collapse, and the water is clean and good to drink. Water is drawn in rubber buckets with the help of 4 very tired little donkeys, then carried to a trough where women can fill their containers. The livestock are watered from the same well, but at some distance, so there is no risk of contamination. Wodaabe rarely slaughter their cattle or goats. Instead, they live from the milk, and trade surplus milk and butter with local farmers for grain, such as millet and sorghum. They do kill a cow or steer for very special celebrations and feasts, when all the members of the family enjoy the extra protein in their diets. The Wodaabe herd zebu cattle, recognized by their long horns and the distinctive hump above their shoulders. Each of their cattle has a personal name, based on the color and patterns of its hide. Each herder knows every one of his cows by name, its strengths and weaknesses, behavior, and breeding qualities. The cattle, and especially camels, are almost pets, and are given a great deal of tender, loving care. The Fulani throughout Africa are very skillful healers of animal and human illness using herbal remedies. Over many thousands of years in the wilderness, surrounded by an enormous variety of plants, roots, trees, and minerals, they have discovered the healing characteristics of each one. The wilderness is the source of their magical power, and they are very knowledgeable about the resources they can find there. They are able to overcome the symptoms of malaria with a boiled infusion of the bark of a tree, and can heal many serious cattle diseases with herbal medicines. They are also very knowledgeable about the kinds of plants and minerals, especially salt, that their herds must have to stay healthy. Many neighboring people, including the Tuareg from the north and the Hausa from the south, consult Wodaabe men to purchase medicine.
Hello.
Every family of the three clans that have gathered at Abdu Nazim have brought bowls of food to the feast. The food is pounded millet mixed with milk. When all has been gathered and prepared and blessed by a marabu, or holy man, the food is divided up and enjoyed by all of the guests without regard to rank or family. Women and men always eat separately, strictly segregated by the rules of Fulani life, Pulaku. Each family's contribution is displayed in its best, oldest ceremonial gourd bowls from the women's table, many of them decorated with painted or burned designs. On the afternoon of the first day, the many senior male clan elders bless the young men who have celebrated their 36th birthdays this year. These men are now considered mature or ripe, ready to be the heads of households. The young men retreat a few yards away, take off all but their underclothes, and put on old leather aprons called dedo, of the type all Wodaabe men once wore. They are each given circlets of grass to wear and bow down before their elders to receive their blessings. Through the whole blessing, they barely move a muscle. Their younger brothers, 34 and 35, try to take part in the blessing, but they are chased away with mild blows. This is all accompanied by a great deal of playful laughter. When this has happened 3 times, they are told to come back the next year to be blessed, and they leave and join the other onlookers.
ceux qui ont des bandes blanches sur les têtes, c'est ceux qui ont les 36 ans cette année. Par contre, il y a d'autres qui sont dans la fête et ils n'ont pas 36 ans. Donc, eux, ils ne peuvent pas se permettre de bander les têtes. Donc, ceux qui n'ont pas les 36 ans font la bouche de bail et venir. Par contre, ceux qui se sont agenouillés devant les vieux, c'est pour dire merci peut-être parce qu'ils vont être en train de prendre les bénédictions parce que Allez, rentrez en brousse, vous n'avez pas les 36 ans, vous n'êtes pas des hommes adultes, vous ne pouvez pas assister à cette fête. C'est ce que les vieux disent.
At the end of the ceremony, the elders remove the circlets and mark the mature men with small bits of sand applied to their backs.
Là, on voit que le vieux est en train d'enlever les bandes qu'ils ont attachées sur la tête. Donc maintenant, ils sont adultes.
The Wodaabe and other Fulani do not have light complexions because they've intermarried with white or other light-skinned people. To the contrary, it is a severe violation of Fulani ethics, called pulaku, for a Fulani man or woman to have sexual contact with a Habe or non-Fulani. On rare occasions when this does happen, the malefactor is severely punished by being shunned and exiled until he shows contrition and begs to be allowed to return to his clan. During the colonial period in Africa, from 1900 to 1960, some Fulani women were contracted as sexual partners to European colonial officers, but because these liaisons brought considerable financial benefit to the clan, they were forgiven.
wannan ya ce shi bai da kaya da zai sa irin na zabuwa da wanga da wurki yanzu in yazo haka shi kuna iya zaben shi ko hena ku kade kuke zaba.
The great attraction of the first day of the Gerewol is the parade of camels, when all the men ride their best camels in a large circle around the women to show them off.
Pendant que les danseurs sont là, il y a aussi les parades des chameaux. Et chacun essaie de orner son animal pour le rendre le plus beau.
The camels are decked out in the most beautiful leather goods the owners can afford, and the women are as good judges of a beautiful camel as young American women are of a flashy car. The most beautiful young riding camel is brought into the center of the gathering, where the young women sing about its beauty, strength, elegance, gracefulness, and speed. All of the young women are eager to touch it and stroke its soft hair. Most of these young women have been betrothed since the age of 5 or 6 in marriages called kubgal, arranged by their parents. They will not move to their husbands' homes until they begin to menstruate. Some of them will form love marriages called tigal. These are marriages between two people who have fallen in love and agreed to start a family.
Ce sont les jeunes filles qui sont venues sur le spectacle.
While the young men are applying their colored clay on dance equipment, some of the women are having their hair braided. There is no particular style worn by unmarried women or married women, but any woman can wear what is in fashion. The hair is shaped into a large mass on the forehead, and the top of the head is left undecorated so that the woman can carry heavy bowls of milk or buckets of water.
Mais comme ça, est-ce qu'il y a des traits très spéciaux pour les femmes?
All of the women wear elaborate tattoos applied when they were very young with a razor blade and then colored with charcoal. The process does not take long, as little as 1 day, but it is very painful. The most typical pattern is a rectangle with a figure at the center worn on the forehead. One woman has a hairpin, or pick, made of cast white metal from a moped engine. The evening of the first day, the young men and women perform the Ruume dance, which is the dance of welcome. The Ruume is always performed toward the end of the rainy season, when ample rains have guaranteed good grass and healthy herds. The men can dress in any sort of colorful costume for the Ruume, and they color their faces yellow, the color of magic. This man with a bright red face is the lead singer, who sings the call phrase of the song while all of the other men together sing in response. They sing of love, of beautiful women they know, their long, beautiful arms and legs, their soft lips, and large, round eyes. These people cannot afford the expensive red and yellow clay, so they instead use grated skin from certain fruits that produce the same red or yellow colors, but have a more mottled look. The dance is in a large circle, facing the center, and the women often dance behind them in a large circle. Both circles move counterclockwise, and the women have a chance to admire the men from behind and to pick out the men they find most attractive.
Jan da ake shahawa.
Shi ma sai Gerewol kawai.
Gerewol. Ya kuma ya kai wani bi nake ga masu masara su masana Gerewol.
A wannan ba Gerewol ba, wannan yake ne kuma.
Yake.
Kala uku ne.
Wasan ido ne.
Wannan shine wasan ido yake kenan. Wannan na Gerewol daban ne.
The man we see preparing for the Gerewol is named Omar. He is 36 years old and has won 5 Gerewols. He has only lost one competition in all the years he has participated, a yake dance last year. He is applying red clay mixed with butter to his face. The red pigment is called kuya and represents violence, war, and death. It is made from clay mined in the mountains near the city of Jos in Nigeria. The yellow pigment they use in the Ruume and yake dances is called makura and comes from the same place.
Dans le concours de la beauté. Et j'espère avoir la 6e aujourd'hui, même ce soir, parce que j'ai confiance vraiment.
All through the long process of preparation, Omar constantly looks in his hand mirror. The mirror is essential to Wodaabe men and women because they must always look their best. And during the Gerewol, Omar must check frequently to make sure his makeup is perfect. The makeup is applied in such a way that it emphasizes his light skin and makes his face appear longer, narrower, and more vertical.
Et la poudre là qui se trouve dans la petite batterie morte, il croit que ça ne peut pas causer de préjudice sur la santé parce qu'il n'avale pas ça.
The black coloring for the lips was once made by burning the bones of wild birds, such as egrets, to a black ash. This gave the performers a lot of love magic when applied to the lips, but it was difficult to obtain. Now they use the black carbon from the insides of dead batteries. Omar claims it is safe because he applies it only to his lips and never swallows any. He also uses a little antimony around his eyes to emphasize their largeness, whiteness, and beauty. The antimony has the added virtue of preventing some eye infections. Omar uses a lot of love magic during the Gerewol to increase his own charm, which the Wodaabe called togu, and to protect himself from the love magic of his enemies. These potions are made from herbal infusions which he can drink, or magic powders which he can rub on his body. He is aware that his rivals use powerful magic and can cause him to fail. He knows very well who his rivals are, and he always asks his friends to help by keeping his rivals far away from him during the dance so they can cause no harm. His nose is the most important feature for the Wodaabe, and so Omar paints it with a tiny white mark to draw attention to it and to make it appear long and thin.
Amma aka bar su kasan ba su bari ba sai suna zuwa suna sakowa kasan nuna ne za a sashi anan ne kamar asirin a rika nuna in aka nuna
kuma wayannan
wayannan ba Wannan su ne ake sawa a san an tashi wasan kenan. Wannan a ga halaman wa.
Nous autour des sondiers, c'est juste pour donner du son, accompagner les applaudissements. Ça veut dire que ça va donner un bon rythme.
Da aka fara an kai ne na fari ba za a fasa maka ba sai da taro ya watsa sai kuma an fara daga wani wuri.
Parmi tous ces candidats qui se présentent,
It is important for Wodaabe men to be both beautiful and charming. To be beautiful means to have a light skin, narrow nose, thin lips, a long narrow face, beautiful white teeth, large round eyes, to be tall and slim, and above all to be symmetrical in body and face. He must wear beautiful clothes and jewelry, and must dance and sing elegantly. Charm is called togu, and it might well be translated as sex appeal. Any person may be beautiful, but may lack appeal, or a person may not be perfectly beautiful, but may have enormous appeal or magnetism. A person who is not truly beautiful can compensate by being a good dancer or singer, or by having a great deal of love magic.
donc c'est pour un peu canaliser les visages.
Mais ça s'appelle comment?
Mi sunan shi quoi. Wayannan biyu abubuwa. Aboki.
Na'am?
Sunan su
Wanne?
wannan wanda yake gyara fuska.
Wannan silicone kenan.
Silicon, ça s'appelle silicon.
Silicone.
Ka gonɗo ni tan nan ɗayyete.
C'est le pied.
Wai me yasa wannan ƙarin kafa kadai ake sa shi kadai ba a sa a duka?
Yawwa saboda daya zai rike mutum sai mutum zai tsaya gefe daya buga da gefe daya. Kaman gwata in gwata.
Ya kuma madibin nan da ake sawa.
Yawwa shi wannan ana zuwa ana gyara wannan bakin kare shiga jan. Baki kare shiga ja.
Et les miroirs là.
C'est
pour, en même temps, il danse. Quand il y a quelque chose qui se gâte, il prend les miroirs et puis il arrange. Le fait de montrer ses dents, ses yeux, ça fait partie des critères des choix. Donc il faut montrer ça. C'est une façon de dégager son charme. Et c'est à partir de cette démonstration que les choix s'effectuent. Kuna tsammani za ku ci koko kuna dan tsoro-tsoro ko da kono wanda yake kara gaba wanda ku
muna tsammani za mu ki dai in ba za mu yi tsammani za mu ki ba wanda zai sa wuya ba.
Là, c'est les chefs de clan qui se sont installés déjà et qui vont certainement suivre le spectacle.
The Gerewol is the war dance. It is a metaphor for war. The men paint their faces red because red is the color of war and violence. But the Wodaabe are not violent people, so instead of going to war, they dance in competitions in which beautiful young men, called Yirotobe, are judged by beautiful young women, called Suboyube. They are judged for their beauty and charm. The men of two clans, the hosts and the guests, compete in two long lines, dancing forward and back like the long lines of infantry in a battle of the Napoleonic Wars. The hosts and guests do not compete at the same time, but take turns. The men dance in rows, and elderly women urge them on to greater effort, while senior men of their own clan direct them. In the film you can see very small, wrinkled elderly women exhorting the competitors, while men in long robes and turbans urge them forward or back and straighten their lines. Only the most handsome young men perform because the competition is tough, physically demanding, and young men fear being humiliated by losing. Men say they fear they will die on the field because the competing clans have placed dangerous medicines under the sand and because the dances are so exhausting. Young men whose fathers have won a Gerewol may compete because they have inherited beauty and charm from their fathers. The Wodaabe prefer to keep the location of their Gerewol secret from outsiders to prevent crowds of onlookers from Niger from attending. The location of the Gerewol is announced only a week before the celebration starts, and at Abdoulaye there are no white people present. Families from each of 3 clans travel considerable distances to attend. Some arrive early or on time and spend 2 weeks at the festival. Other families must travel so far that they arrive late. The elders wait for everyone to arrive so every eligible young man will have a chance to compete. The elders only announce that the Gerewol has ended when the last family has arrived, their men have taken part, and they have shared in the feast and celebration. The men all wear iron rattles, called akayare, on their right ankles. They stamp these on the ground in unison to create a distinctive beat. They all carry ceremonial axes, called jalel, which they twirl. These are very small and light, and the blades are flimsy, so they cannot be used for a physical attack. This is how the young men charm the female judges. Wodaabe admire large round eyes, white teeth, and light skin. The men flutter their lips, puff their cheeks, show their brilliant teeth, and roll their eyes. A man who can roll his eyes independently is much admired. There are a few timeouts when men check their makeup and take a drink of cool water. Some repairs are made on the rattles.
danseurs que nous voyons ici, c'est des héritiers, c'est des gens qui ont hérité un don de leurs parents. Et le papa, dès que tu n'as pas un papa qui a déjà eu le concours de beauté, qui a déjà gagné par exemple la confiance d'une fille, tu ne peux pas t'intégrer dans ce groupe-là. Donc tu peux dire que dès que tu t'intègres dans ce groupe, tu dois aussi obligatoirement gagner, au moins ne serait-ce qu'une seule fois, le concours de la beauté, pour permettre à ton fils aussi de participer à ce concours. Puisque tant que tu ne gagnes pas le concours, ton fils ne peut jamais participer. Donc ces grimaces que vous voyez, c'est une manière de charmer les jeunes filles qui sont en train de regarder le spectacle maintenant. Donc c'est de cette façon, chacun essaie de montrer son charme aux jeunes demoiselles.
At the climax of the dance, two young women who have been selected as judges approach slowly and shyly, protected by both senior women from their own clan and senior men from the competing clan. These women are not from the clan of the performers, but they judge the man of the opposite clan, so great care is taken that they make their decision fairly and are not influenced to make a choice that benefits their own clan.
Le soir va se faire tout à l'heure, donc les clans se divisent et chaque clan se met de côté pour que le soir soit plus efficace. Donc vous voyez les deux jeunes filles arrêtées et les danseurs en face.
At this point, the elders have chosen finalists, who are separated from the other competitors. They replace their ostrich plumes with sheep or horse tails, which identify them as finalists.
Les plumes d'autruche, on les remplace par des queues. Selon le... Vous voyez le visage de tout un chacun. Pour le moment, ils sont un peu tristes parce qu'ils ne savent pas qui les jeunes filles vont choisir.
Celui qui ne porte pas la queue de mouton sur sa tête ne sera pas désigné par le deuxième.
Donc comme vous le remarquez, ils ont changé les costumes. Par exemple, ceux qui portaient les plumes d'autruche ont changé les plumes d'autruche. Maintenant, ils sont en train de porter des queues de mouton. Donc, tant que tu ne portes pas cette queue, tu ne peux pas être choisi. Donc, tu veux dire qu'il y a déjà des éliminés. Ceux qui portent toujours les queues d'autruche ne font pas partie de ceux que les filles vont choisir. Donc c'est le moment de vraiment prouver ton charme.
Et dès que le fils s'approche des candidats, c'est les bousculades qui commencent parce que chacun d'entre eux voulait être désigné.
They hold their left hand against their faces to hide their glances from the men, and after several pauses, they individually approach the line of dancers, and with a swift, slight, almost furtive gesture, they select the young man they judge to be the most beautiful and charming.
Donc, le vieux les repousse, que non, que c'est pas comme ça, il faut se faire choisir. Il faut charmer la jeune fille au lieu de la bousculer.
The women approach very slowly. The contestants are almost frantic. The elders try to push them back. The young woman approaches, swinging her right arm. She turns back. She makes her choice. Here. The second woman approaches and makes her choice. Here.
C'est comme ça que ça se passe toujours. Des fois, la foule là, empêche les gens de faire. Voilà, tu remontes la caméra un peu. Comme ça, même si après les gens, quand ils se lèvent,
The first day of the Gerewol is over. This was the first of 14 competitions, which resulted in 28 women selecting 28 different winners. Omar did not win today, but he did win 5 days later, continuing his record of success as the most beautiful and charming of Wodaabe men. The cows are returning from pasture. People return to camp for some hot, sweet tea. The sun sets over the dunes of the southern Sahara, and the Wodaabe prepare for another day of dancing for beauty and love.
Amboda hande yiyama photo e